Good morning. Let's just go ahead and begin with a word of prayer. Lord, I just thank you so much for this beautiful morning that we have, and I just thank you for the privilege that we can learn more about how to reach people in an intuitive, easy way using health evangelism, and I thank you in Jesus' name, amen. So we're going to spend the next hour and 50 minutes pretty intense. I will just tell you, I hope that you're drinking plenty of water, and you have to get up and go to the bathroom. For those of you who don't know this church, the men's restroom is down those stairs and around the back. It's not signed, but it's around the back. The women's pretty obvious. It's straight down. Just go that way and just straight down. So I would hope that you're drinking enough water that somebody has to get up and leave. But unless, the only way we're going to have a break is if I drink enough water that I have to leave. I have learned that if I give a break and I say 5 minutes, it takes 15 minutes to get everybody back in the room. So we're not going to have any breaks. Just so you know. But go ahead and take a break. It's not going to offend me. In fact, if you don't like something I say, go ahead and go to somebody else's program. I mean, I'm okay. Okay, so how about that? We're going to talk about a subject which is amazing because diabetes is becoming the worst disease, not only in America, but in the world. In America, there are many counties now that have more than 50% of their population either pre-diabetic or diabetic. It was estimated by the CDC that wouldn't happen until 2020, but it's already happening, and we're only in 2017. It's on a trajectory that's going to take over and be the single worst disease, not only in America, but in the world. Where are the most diabetics in the world? India and China. Already. They're not in America. Because India has, we'll see the numbers, but India has somewhere around, I'm thinking 200 million diabetics. Almost as many diabetics as we have population. It's actually worse than that. I don't know the exact numbers, but we'll see that. It actually displays it in the videos. What we've done is we've created a program that makes it, and I don't want to be offensive, but it makes it idiot-proof. This program is really easy to run. In addition, we suggest that you don't put a physician moderating it. Because unless physicians know how to sell and make eye contact and develop relationships, they shouldn't be up there. Put a real estate agent or a banker or a car salesman, put somebody who's kind of funny and engaging, can speak, but they have to have gone through the program. They get the program and then they moderate the program. It might be good to have a nurse or maybe a physician in the audience. The trouble, and I'm a physician, so I can say this, it's not always best to have a physician even in your group because they may not have seen it, they don't get it, and they may be fighting at odds with you. Because traditional medicine doesn't say that diabetes is preventable or reversible. And you will see when you get to the end of this that that's the most insane thing that anybody could imagine because it is both preventable and it's reversible. I can say that because I'm the chief operating officer at Weimar Institute, and we've been doing this for 39 years, over 13,000 patients. So we have some experience, published data, which shows that this happens. Before we get into it, I'm actually going to show you a promotional video that's about 2.5 minutes long. It kind of introduces Dr. Wes Youngberg. Dr. Youngberg has a doctorate in public health, and for his entire career, he has been treating type 2 diabetes for 27 years. He's within the Adventist Church, and even with the world, he's probably one of the most experienced people in the lifestyle treatment of diabetes. He's one of the founding directors of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. They're actually going to have a convention in Tucson in October, and there's over 800 physicians that are already registered to go to that. And he's one of the founding leaders of that, that college. It's the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. He's very experienced within the Adventist Church. He's the most knowledgeable person we have on this treatment, and even in the world, he's recognized as a world expert. And he's also an engaging speaker. So I'm going to just show you an example of the video clips. There are 40 total clips in this program, and it's designed to be covered over an 8-session program. How many weeks should that be?
5, 4, 2, 8.
I'd like to do it in 8 straight days. But you can't, because people won't come 8 days in a row. The reason I'd like to do it in 8 consecutive days is because they stay on track. They keep remembering and they keep building and they keep going. If you only have it for 8 weeks, once a week, that's a disaster. Because they can't even remember. Because you have to get to week 3 or 4 before you have enough information to know what you're going to do. So the idea is to shrink it into as small a package as is possible for your demographic. And in this situation, we've been suggested to do it over a 4-week period because that's what everybody else is doing. And then having a bridging event for 2 weeks and then an evangelistic series. It's a very orchestrated goal of doing this. Now, why would you want to do this? And I'll give you the tale of 2 cities. In San Antonio, and I've been with every Pathway event from the beginning. In San Antonio, we had all kinds of follow-up. We went down and did training. In fact, this program wasn't actually designed to be a community-based delivery. I'm president of Life and Health Network, which is the organization that produced this. This is about a $200,000 project, just so you know what it costs. And our goal was to have it as a web cloud-based program so anybody in the world could pay a fee. It would unlock all of the segments. They could watch it and perhaps, reverse their diabetes. Don McIntosh was down in San Antonio in some of the planning, and they asked if Weimar could do a reversing diabetes program. And as the chief operating officer, I said, yes. We're going to own you for 3 days. We're going to cook all the food. We're going to pay for all the food. We're going to do everything for 3 days, and it's going to cost about $300 a person. I didn't hear from him. And about 3 or 4 months before the event, he goes, okay, here's what they want. They would like to have it 1 night a week for 8 weeks. They'd like to have it church-based, community-based, and they want it to be free. I go, really? I go, that's just not going to work. I don't see it in Weimar's mission that we should give free delivery to the Texas conference, fly our team down there and then give it to them for free. And we were working on this program. We didn't have any of the things that went along with it. We did not have this cookbook. We did not have this workbook. And this DVD was available at the time. We had only finished half of the modules. And Don McIntosh said, we really need to provide something for the people in San Antonio. I said, well, maybe we could morph this cloud-based program into a community-based program, and because it's just beta test, we actually will give it to them for free because we're still in beta. We don't even know if it works. When we started this, night 1, we didn't have night 7 and 8 even processed. Really, on faith, that's what we did. San Antonio in 1 year baptized 1,200 people and had to start 2 more churches. Amen. Spokane, we did a Pathways event there. The conference wasn't very supportive. We didn't really do any training like you're doing now. We didn't really do much follow-up, and there were almost no baptisms. We actually decided at that time, if you, that is Phoenix, doesn't want to do this and doesn't want to do follow-up, we're not coming. Why should we do all this work, basically waste money, if we've lost all the contacts? So that's the tale of 2 cities. You want to baptize 1,200? Or do you want to baptize none? And so that's why you're here. And the reason, and I'm partial, but you're in the best room you could be in. Why is that? You could be in Neil's depression recovery, and that's a great program. But this is the best program, and I'll tell you why. Because in 3 days, if you stay with the program, I can have your numbers so dramatically different that you'll just fall out of your chair. In fact, in some people, a few, in 3 days, their blood sugars will be normal. In 3 days. So what do you think would happen in 8 weeks, or 4 weeks, or 3 weeks, or 2 weeks?
Hypoglycemia.
Yeah, well, if they stay on their meds. If they stay on their medications, they will become dangerously hypoglycemic. And we'll discover why. So in fact, the problem is you need to make sure that one of the big caveats is they need to recognize that their blood sugars are going to fall, and they may be dangerously low, and they need to converse with their physician, their nurse, their practitioners to cut their medications down. Now, most people have had diabetes long enough, they control their own meds. You know, if they become hypoglycemic, they don't go to their doctor, they just stop taking their meds. But you can't tell them that unless you have a license to practice medicine in Arizona. Okay? So let's show this promo, and this is a great promo to show in your church to actually get a team together, and we'll talk about the makeup of the team. And I think I need to unmute this. And I just want you to look at the quality.
It's a universal epidemic, and it's increasing at an alarming rate. Today, more than a third of all Americans are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. If current trends continue, this will increase to half of all Americans by the year 2020. Diabetes and pre-diabetes significantly increase the risk of heart disease and many other devastating complications. But the good news is that current trends don't have to continue, especially not in your case. Type 2 diabetes is not only preventable, it's also reversible. Diabetes can be undone. I'm Dr. Wes Youngberg. For the past 25 years, I've worked with thousands of clients to reverse diabetes and other chronic health conditions. If there's one thing my career has taught me about diabetes, it's this: there's hope for change.
I reversed my diabetes.
I was able to reverse diabetes now for over a year.
I reversed diabetes.
I reversed my diabetes.
I want you to experience dramatic health improvements too. That's why I've condensed 25 years of clinical practice into this dynamic new program. Diabetes Undone offers 9 steps and 40 short videos that will empower you to optimize nutrition, exercise, and other powerful lifestyle strategies to reclaim your health. You'll learn how to fight high blood sugars by addressing their underlying causes. I've seen hundreds of clients experience remarkable health improvements by following the same wellness strategies you'll learn in this course. Many of them are no longer diabetic. This course can also help type 1 diabetics to control the condition and prevent complications. Even better, the same strategies that fight diabetes also effectively combat heart disease, obesity, cancer, autoimmune disease, and many other health conditions. This course isn't just about diabetes. It's about experiencing optimal wellness in every area of your life: body, mind, and spirit. I'm confident that the strategies you'll learn will make a lasting impact in your life. So let's get started. Today is the first day of your new health story.
So why diabetes? Why would you want to help someone actually reverse their diabetes? And let's just imagine that there are probably people in this room, clearly, that are pre-diabetic, and there may actually be type 2 diabetics in this room right now. And if I talk to you and I show you this program and I reverse maybe you're a neighbor and you don't know much about Camelback Church or wherever you're from, Tempe Church, and maybe you're a neighbor, but you're encouraged to come, and you really don't know what we do in this Seventh-day Adventist Church, but you thought you would come to this program, and we become friends, and we actually, in a short period of time, in 2 or 3 weeks, reverse your disease so that your blood sugar, your resting blood sugar, fasting blood sugar is less than 100, and after 3 or 4 months, your hemoglobin A1C is less than 6%. You no longer have the diagnosis of diabetes. You will say, "You saved my life. You saved my life. You did something that my physicians, haven't been doing for 10 years. Who would know that it would be so easy? Because it really is quite easy. It's also quite hard. If it was easy, everybody do it. But the program is intuitive and it's pretty obvious. And now I say, we've successfully reversed your diabetes. And we've prayed and God has helped us. We have a kind of a bridging program and then evangelistic series. Would you like to come? They're not going to say no. You saved their life. They're going to say, sure, I'll come. In fact, we actually had patients say, how do I join your church? Now, we've spent a lot of time and effort doing traditional evangelism, a lot of cold knocking. We know the numbers, a 0.06% response on a mail out, for example. Numbers that are less than 1%. And you have these people that you've gone through a health program, and your conversion rate, to give you an idea, we have an 18-day New Start session at Weimar. We have an 18-day session. And we're on track to baptize 65 people this year, of those 18. Dr. Nedley has a depression recovery program on campus, and they're on track to baptize 35 more out of depression recovery. These people paid us to allow us to evangelize them. And we're going to baptize 100 people. Now, is that a paradigm change? What was our evangelism budget? It was zero. I didn't pay anything. They paid us, and they came. We improved their health, but in the process of improving their health, we've convinced them and shown them that they're really fighting a spiritual battle. And when we have Adventists, they get rebaptized. We've had Adventist pastors who come to New Start, got rebaptized. And when they tell us, they go, that was the key to getting me to change my health choices. That was the key. Nothing else worked. They get baptized. Okay, now suddenly I have God's power. I've asked for his power. He steps in and completely changes their lives. I told this story at Tempe Church. Is anybody here from Tempe? Okay, yeah, of course you are. I told this church story yesterday. Last Sabbath, we had a baptism. I gave a lecture on Thursday night. I like giving lectures around day 10 or 11. In the first 3 or 4 days, they're not really happy they're there, because we put them into a medically induced fast for 3 days. They're not eating. They're not really happy, and it's not real fun to lecture to them then. But usually by about day 10, they start seeing all these amazing results, these miracles, and so they're upbeat and excited. So then I like to talk to them. So I was giving this talk, and it was a very positive spiritual message, and afterward she came up to me and she said, the Holy Spirit is telling me I need to get baptized on Sabbath. She goes, I've been essentially an Adventist for most of my life. She has Methodist background, but she's been going to the Adventist Church, going to prayer meeting. She goes, I've just never been baptized. Ed Keyes is her cousin, actually her wife's cousin. And she said, but I already told Pastor Keyes that if I were to get baptized, I'd let him do it. So we had a testimony on a week ago Friday night, and we got Ed Keyes on the phone, and the place was packed. On a Friday night meeting, there's 400 people in the building, and got Ed on the phone. We had kind of prepped him, and he said, you really should do it there. I give you my blessing. And she got baptized a week ago Sabbath as a result of effectively a health evangelism program. She thought she was coming to correct some of her health issues, but what we really realized is that we needed to correct her connection with God and correct this spiritual battle. So that's the reason you do this, is because your goal, we tell our students, the goal is a soul. If you do a Diabetes Undone program and your goal is not a soul, don't do it. For many years, the Adventist Church has been doing health outreach. We've done stop smoking programs, but we've always been a little embarrassed about the Seventh-day Adventist name, and we have a little, we may not pray at every meeting, and we just don't want to we don't want to embarrass, we really don't want to embarrass ourselves. And people have done stop smoking programs they did for 10 years, and they didn't get one baptism. I would retool it or shut it down, because all we have really been doing is allowing a sinner to live longer in their sin. You've actually done them a disservice. Tell them to keep smoking. Might as well get off the earth sooner. It's just a miserable experience. Because if you don't have God and you're not going to heaven, you might as well just check out. Tell me if I'm wrong. The goal is a soul. And if the goal is a soul, you're using this as bait. You're using it, and it's very appropriate, it's very biblical. Ellen White talks about the right arm of the message, the health message being, it's so effective, but we haven't used it the way it's supposed to be. We're very overtly spiritual. We suggest that you have the program in the Adventist Church, not in a community center. We want them at the church. And they know you're Adventist. They're coming to a church for a program. So they expect you to pray. Excuse me. If you don't pray, they go, do they, they're, what's going on? So, I need to talk a little bit about diabetes, and, we're not going to go through all these modules. We're going to just show you one or two more. I want to talk a little bit about type 2 diabetes, and I'm getting warm, and you guys don't want me to turn the air down, so. Let's talk about diabetes. We used to talk about juvenile onset diabetes, not juvenile onset, but it was juvenile onset and adult onset. Those terms were common. Juvenile onset is now called type 1, and adult onset is now called type 2 because there's some crossover. Because you don't have to be a juvenile to get type 1, and you don't have to be an adult to get type 2 now. By the way, I don't know if you guys noticed on the slide, but China, there was a bar graph. China has almost 100 million diabetics. And India has about 50 million diabetics. China is the #1 nation in the world with diabetics. Just so you know. It's a worldwide problem. So what's the problem with type 1 diabetes? What's the problem? Well, what's the problem with diabetes? Why is it called diabetes? What's wrong? What's high? Why is it called diabetes? Too much sugar in your blood, okay? Let's just imagine that all of you guys are glucose molecules, and you're in the plasma. And I'll just tell you, there's too many of you in here. So what does the body do to get you out? Let's just say you want to get out the door, and we'll just imagine the door is shut for now, and you need to get out of the door, because if you get out of the door, where are you trying to get? Where does glucose want to go? Into the cell. Now, what kind of cell? Just imagine. Every cell, but like 95% of the cells. It's just one kind of cell. It's not the blood cell. It wants to make energy. Brain only uses glucose, but it's not using 95% of the energy. What is? Your muscle cells. Almost all the glucose is burned in muscle cells. And the glucose molecule wants to get into the cell because it can then go into the mitochondria and go through the Krebs cycle, if any of you remember your biochemistry, and will produce energy. That's what its goal is, to go in and make energy. Out here, you're worthless. You have no value in the plasma. None. And there's also too many of you. And the problem is you're sticky. You start sticking to the cell walls and sticking to each other and sticking to the heme molecule. You're really sticky. And the problem is there's too many of you and you're sticky, and so you're causing all kinds of havoc. Okay? That's diabetes. So what's the issue with type 1 diabetes? I heard the answer already. The problem is the pancreas. It isn't the pancreas can't produce any insulin. It can't produce enough insulin. What does insulin do? Insulin is a hormone. It's a hormone created by the pancreas. And it's the key that unlocks the door that allows you into the cell. Okay? So we'll just imagine, I don't want to walk out of the camera site, but we'll just imagine that insulin unlocks the door and allows you out of the room, so now there's fewer of you in here, and you go into the cell and you make energy. But if there's not enough insulin, not enough of you can get out of the room, so the blood sugar stays high. Because the insulin is the key that lets you out of the plasma into the cell. So if you can't get into the cell, you stay in the plasma, there's too many of you, your blood sugar is high, and when the blood sugar is high, remember what happens? Havoc. You guys start getting sticky, and you're not nice to each other. So the problem with a type 1 diabetic is that they've had an autoimmune insult to the pancreas, and the pancreas can't make enough insulin, so their insulin levels are low. Got it? Let's talk about type 2 diabetes. And for the purpose of this program, when we talk about diabetes, it means type 2 diabetes. We'll talk about type 1, and will this program actually help type 1s? And it's more complicated. The answer is yes, somewhat. Type 2 diabetic. What's the insulin levels in a type 2 diabetic? Remember, the problem with the type 1, not enough insulin, can't get you out of the room. What's the problem? What's the insulin levels in a type 2 diabetic? High. It's high. Now, does that make any sense? It's high, but there's still too many of you. What happened? You're going to discover this term. It's called insulin resistance. And we're going to actually drill down and find out what causes insulin resistance. Insulin levels are high, but guess what? They're not high enough. The reason I know they're not high enough is there's still too many of you in the room. If the insulin level got high enough, if I injected insulin into you, you would leave the room. I could drop your blood sugar, even in a type 2 diabetic. I could give you insulin, get you out of the room. So the problem with a type 2 diabetic is your insulin level is high, but it's not high enough to treat the problem. And the problem is insulin resistance. So let's talk about what happened. In insulin resistance, the problem is the muscle cell has too much, and I'll just use a long word because as a physician, I like using long words because I'm going to send you a big bill, and so you'll understand that since I use big words, I can send you a big bill. In the cell, there's too much intramyocellular lipid. What does that mean in Latin? It means inside the cell, inside the muscle cell, myo is the muscle cell, there's too much fat. Now you who are diabetics, you went to a diabetic educator and they told you you need to do some things. What did they tell you to do? Eat less sugar, okay? Eat less carbs. And to exercise. Did that work? Correct answer, somewhat. Did it work? It did work somewhat. Did it reverse your disease? Did it make you normal? No. So it turns out they have you eating less sugar. Now, if I eat less sugar, will there be less of you in the room? Yeah. But there's still too many of you. So it didn't fix the problem. It just kind of managed your disease. Because when you have type 2 diabetes, they're going to say, we're going to manage your disease. We're going to put you on medication. We're going to manage it, but it's a lifelong disease. We're going to see a lot of each other. They didn't say, do you want to stop seeing me in like 3 or 4 weeks? They could have said that, but they didn't. Why didn't they? Let's look at the next module and help address some of those issues. And what I want you to do is I want you to look at these critically, like, are these engaging? Are they well done? And there's good graphics. This is a really well done professional program. Thanks for praying.
Have you ever?
That is stunning. So there's actually a defect in that disc, not the disc player. So I'm actually going to go to number 2. Now, what would happen if this happens in your church? When what do you do? First of all, it's important to have a tech person, and usually, in fact, I actually have 2 complete sets of these DVDs. So if something happens to one of them, I'll open up a package and start the second one. But it's not necessary that I show you every module because we're just kind of giving you an overview. So I'm going to go to this.
One of my favorite words in the English language is hope. I use this word often without giving it much thought. I hope I'll have time to play basketball on Tuesday. I hope I make it to the airport on time for my flight. I hope my dog Bolt will stop chewing up my stuff. I also hope for more important things. I hope my family is safe. I hope my kids will make good decisions. I hope my life is meaningful. Hope is a universal need. We can't live without it. Research shows that hopeful people are happier, healthier, and more productive. Hopefulness is associated with increased academic and work performance and decreased risk for disease and premature death. But what exactly is hope, and why is it so important? Hope is the feeling that what is desired could actually be possible. Why is hope powerful? Because when we believe a goal is possible, we're much more likely to invest the time and effort to make it a reality. So what does this have to do with diabetes? Actually, everything. In the last section, we learned about the old diabetes paradigm, which teaches that type 2 diabetes is a chronic, irreversible disease. Doesn't sound very hopeful, does it? But the new diabetes paradigm is full of hope. It's good news. The vast majority of type 2 diabetes cases can be reversed. A healthy, disease-free life is actually within your reach. Let's look at a few examples of people who learned to hope again.
Approximately a year ago, I was feeling really bad. I was lack of energy, constant headaches, wake up not feeling as energetic as I usually do. Didn't want to play any sports, didn't want to go for a morning run. Decided to talk to the doctor about it. I went in, he put me through a glucose test, and the glucose test revealed that I had diabetes. From my experience, I know diabetes to not be curable, and it just wasn't a good experience to hear, somebody tell you that you've got diabetes. I thought that my future was going to be pretty much shortened. I thought that, I may possibly not be able to do the things that I wanted to do with my kids, such as sporting events, soccer, softball, basketball. Amputations of toes, fingers, and limbs all came into mind when I was first diagnosed with diabetes. I was very worried, and it was just a depressing diagnosis to find out that I've got diabetes. A friend of mine told me about Dr. Youngberg and explained that he may be able to help me. After the first 3 weeks, I could feel a change. It felt like a weight was lifted off me. I wake up with a lot more energy, a lot more focus on what I had to do each day. After 3 months of meeting Dr. Youngberg, my diabetes was reversed, and I was told by one of my doctors at the VA that I'm no longer diabetic. I've been feeling better ever since. My blood sugars used to run over 390 after meals. Now they're running approximately 110. My hemoglobin A1C was 8.3, and it's now 5.7. I eat a lot more fruits and vegetables today rather than what I used to eat. I used to eat a lot of processed foods. I enjoy going for a daily run, and it's working out a whole lot better. I have more energy and stamina to finish the run, and don't have the weekly ailments that I was having prior to following Dr. Youngberg's guidance. I grew up believing that diabetes was something similar to a death sentence, where you were going to have to get an amputation eventually, that you weren't going to be able to eat certain foods for the rest of your life. There is hope if you have diabetes. Initially, I thought there was no hope for me with a diagnosis of diabetes, but today, after meeting Dr. Youngberg, I definitely believe that there's hope with someone with diabetes and that you can reverse it. I'm very excited about sharing it with just about everybody I come in contact with at work. A lot of them, the ones that I've shared the experience with that I have diabetes or had diabetes. Some of them are still under the auspices that if you have diabetes, it's there to stay. And I explained to them that no, my diabetes is irreversible, and they're like, well, tell me more. Today, I'm living proof that diabetes can be reversed.
I was taking a routine medical test, you know, just a thing, and for the first time, the doctor, my primary doctor, says, I think you're diabetic. So we did further testing, and sure enough, I was a full-blown diabetic. My primary doctor said, oh, we could take care of that with medications and all so forth. Well, after reading that book, I said to myself, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try this lifestyle medicine way. And I think it's been providential that God put me in touch with Dr. Youngberg. Sure enough, he did all these extensive tests and put me on a new program of what I need to do. And really, it's quite simple things that we had to do. It just made all good sense. So it wasn't a hardship at all, as far as I was concerned. 6 months later, after the started all that, I was declared non-diabetic. I reversed it. And since then, I just had the extensive test just about 2 months ago, and I'm still not a diabetic or pre-diabetic. And that alone is the reward. And I'm eternally grateful. There's no question about it. Now, I've been without diabetes for a year and a half, and there's no question about it. I've enjoyed better health. I've reversed the diabetes. I've lost weight. My cholesterol is, in fact, the last test I had, it was only 112. And I've been focusing on the good stuff. I mean, to see the results that I've been getting versus I have to do this and I have to do that and I have to do this other things. Instead of focusing on what you have to do, is focus on what results you get and the benefits of it. Right after I eat breakfast, we're on our walk. Just like this morning, and it's about an hour. And once it becomes a habit, it's much easier, you know, you get used to do different things. I've never tried to lose weight, but I've lost, since that started, I've lost 45 pounds. So I'm back to about my fighting weight. I have a lot more energy now. Very seldom do I want to take a nap any longer. I used to have to, you know, almost every day take an hour or so a nap. Well, very seldom I take a nap anymore. I just don't feel like it. I just feel I have the energy, and what I've done is no great thing, I think, but it's a great thing to me though. And I hope that's an encouragement to anybody else that could say, here, this 91 old guy can do it, I'm going to do it too. I hope somebody says that.
Aren't these powerful stories? Because they believed that change was possible, they were motivated to make healthy choices. These are just a few of many former diabetics who transformed their health, all starting with a paradigm shift. What about you? What's your health story? Would you like to experience some of the same results? The good news is that you can. It all starts in your mind. Your health paradigm will determine your health destiny. Why not shift that paradigm today?
We didn't see the first module, but it basically is talking about out with the old and in with the new. That is, the old paradigm is that you just manage it. You know, you're going to have it forever. And we're actually, the in with the new is, look, this is reversible and it's preventable, and we're going to show you why. And then this is the second module. You notice what we're doing. We're now showing you people who've actually done it, and they're trying to instill, you put yourself into that picture. We're trying to instill hope. Like, could that work for me? And then you see this night, Tom Saparo is 91 years old. You know, he's been disease-free for a year and a half. You're going to see a testimony by a lady who's been 10 and a half years without disease, and all the friends that she used to have are now dead. And she's traveling the world and as healthy as can be. And so, I mean, you basically say, and he knew what a diabetic, most people who have diabetes know what death's going to look like. They have friends. They often are in family clusters. and especially in African Americans, the incidence is much higher for diabetes, and they know what it looks like. They've seen amputations. They've seen people needing renal dialysis, their kidneys fail. They've seen them go blind because of their type 2 diabetes, and they've seen their higher incidence of cancer, their higher incidence of peripheral vascular disease, higher incidence of coronary heart disease, higher incidence of strokes, higher incidence of pretty much every disease known. This program, even if you don't have diabetes, would actually improve your health so dramatically. If you just see, we just tell people, if it's good for a diabetic, it's good for everybody. This is a program that everybody should be on. A little bit of the mechanics of the program. How big should the group be that you decide to do? Because a lot of times people don't think about it. They just advertise and all comers and fill up the room.
8 to 10.
I love that number. I love 8 to 10. The reason I like 8 to 10 is because if we get 10 participants, we actually tell them that they can bring a non-diabetic friend, a husband, spouse, family member for free. Because if we can get somebody within their family group to come, they're going to be more successful. Not only that, but I'm evangelizing a family now instead of a person. So if I have 10 people, my goal is really to have about 20 people. So maybe you need 12 or 13, and then you have 7 people who are non-diabetics who come as companions. You don't want it so big that you can't manage it, because your goal is a soul. If you have 50 people in the room and you have 5 people helping, it's not going to happen. There's going to be people, they're going to come and go, and you'll never even know their names. So we suggest that you have a team, and the team should be nimble and small. You don't want this thing to be overwhelming, and you want to be able to select them. You don't just put an advertisement in the bulletin saying, if you're interested in signing up, let us know and you can join the team. No, that's not the way it works. I get to pick the team members. Because I don't want people, and you know that you have people that will actually drive them back out the door. You don't want those people on your team. You want to choose a facilitator, you maybe a couple of people, and you go, I really have this ministry. I really want to do this. And I want to choose a team of people so that we can do this. So you get to pick your own team. The great thing is you don't have to go to the church board eventually to get money, because this thing is self-supporting. In this Pathways event, we've actually provided you special pricing. And I'll show you what a kit consists of. And I'm actually going to, this is a kit, pass it around, look at it, and then get it back. What your church has to do is your church has to register online to be a facilitating church. We actually have, this thing has been going now officially about 14 months, and we have over 300 churches already registered to do Diabetes Undone programs. That cost is $99. And you just have to pay it. Because what you get for that is you get a set of the DVDs. The DVDs are worth $150. You get this group edition, Diabetes Undone, and you also get the right to the access on the toolbar online of all the online training programs. You don't have to have what I'm doing for you. You could do it by just doing it all online. All the information is online. What I'm telling you right now, you can go online and see me telling you online. So all of the training tools, you don't actually need to go get certified to be a trainer to actually put on this program. You can register your church. It unlocks all of the training modules. You can look at those. You get a set of the DVDs. We suggest you create a team. How big should the team be? You need a facilitator. You need someone who's going to stand up and actually talk and to have prayer and introduce the next subjects. But this thing is going to pretty much run on its own. We have it all scripted. Show this module, ask this question, take 3 minutes to get answers. There are certain questions that come up that have nothing to do with what was just shown, and we tell you how to handle that. What do? You don't answer it. Because there are certain people that want to take over and be in charge of where it goes. And the person up here needs to be forceful enough to say, that's a really interesting question. I want you to hold on to that, and we'll answer those at the end. And you just stay on schedule. You want to start on time, and you want to end on time. I'm very compulsive about time management because it says something about who you are as a person and as an organization. If you tell them you're going to be done at 8:30 and they're planning on being out of there at 8:30, and if you don't get out of there till 10 to 9 and they had made some schedule, they're upset at you. It's not fair to take over their time. Make sure you start on time. I've had 3 people in the room and there were supposed to be 10, and it's time. I go, you're here. You shouldn't be punished for being on time. We're starting. Start on time and on time. The only exception is the first night. It's really hard because you're just getting them registered, and it's a little hard to stay on time. You just explain that to them. The first night, it always goes a little over, and we're sorry about that. We're going to get on schedule. The modules are a little shorter on the first night intentionally, but the first night you may not be able to end on time, but you tell them, listen, when we're here Thursday night, you say it's a Tuesday, Thursday night. On Thursday night, we're going to start at 7:15 on the button, and we're going to end at 8:30, and we'll get you out of here, but you better be here at 7:15 because we're starting at 7:15. And they know that. They'll be there. If they think you're just chronically late, they'll just kind of mosey on and they'll be late too. Okay? So once you've registered as a church, we suggest that you create a team. You have to decide, first of all, this room is not a bad-sized room. It wouldn't be bad if it was even a little smaller. You want to be able to, if you have 20 people, you want to pretty much fill the room. You don't want to put 20 people into a room that'll seat 500 because that's always going to look odd. So you put it into a room that will comfortably service the size of the group you have. Decide the size of the group that you want to target, and then you need to choose a team that will help. We suggest that you have a ratio of 3 and no more than 4 to 1. So if you're expecting 20 total people, you need 5 additional people to be health coaches. So let's just say you're going to start with 12 people. So you need at least 3 people to be facilitators because you might have an older facilitator and there's a group of older people, and you might say, I'm going to assign you those people because the demographic. You might actually have some young people, and you decide, you assign the facilitator, the health coach, these 4, you're mine, okay? You guys are mine. So I get to know your name, I get your phone number, I give you my phone number because if you're going to have questions, I want you to call me even before the next session. I want to get to know you. What is my goal? Remember, what's the goal? The goal is a soul. How can I win a soul if I don't even know your name? So my goal is to come up and say, welcome. We're just so glad you're here. And I use his name, and how's your wife doing? And I know his family. And he goes, wow, this is amazing. This is amazing. And by the time you've done this 8 nights, it's possible you've even had him over to your home to fix a meal. It's possible. I mean, that's the goal. The goal is a soul. How are you going to get a soul if you don't get to know the people? Personal relationships. So you pick your people carefully, not randomly, that are going to be in charge. And you assign, and let's just say you have 12 people come, and you have 3 health, those are your 3, and those are your 4, and you get to know them. You get to know them on the first night. And so you have a facilitator, and maybe you have 3 more people. So your team would be like 4 people. This is not rocket science, and it's not like a huge commitment. Now, what is it necessary for them to do? You have to sit down, and you have to get through this entire program before you start the first night. You can't just watch the first night and just be 1 night ahead of them, because they're going to ask you about their hemoglobin A1C, and you go, A1C, what in the world's that?
So we need to study that over and over and over.
Not study it. You need to sit down, really is sit down as a group and just go through them. It takes about 6 hours. You can take as long as you can take, but you need to know this information in here that you're then going to show again, so that when they have questions in the week, you know how to answer them.
I have a question as far as the ratio. Would that include like if they're bringing somebody?
Right.
So you're
Generally, what we're talking about is a facilitator for the actual person who has diabetes, because they're the person who's going to be calling. The others are bonuses. Because you're actually, a professional health coach facilitator, and you're facilitating the person with the type 2 diabetes, but you actually might become a better friend from the sister or whoever came. They're a bonus. So you might have a group of 6, but you have 3 diabetics, or no more than 4. That's our suggestion. And those people have gotten through this before you have the first night. Okay? Yes?
So we are supposed to select, most of the people coming to us are people who are going to have the abnormal tests
Yes.
from the lab results.
They will know if they have
Yeah,
diabetes.
I know, so the
Yeah.
lab, right?
There are a lot of people out there who don't know. But
Those who do not have physicians or don't have primary care doctors because they don't have recurrence and stuff like that, as they go through the program, I imagine that, if that was me, I want to know, are my labs corrected?
okay, most people who are type 2 diabetics have glucometers and strips, and if they don't, you're going to have one, and have somebody who knows how to. If you want to know how to do it, find a diabetic. They've been doing it themselves for several years. They know how to do it.
People who are just caught for the first time.
Who have just what? Just been diagnosed?
Yes, or they didn't realize they weren't until their labs come back, and then they say, okay, we can help you with that, and they don't have doctors.
Well, the good news, here's the good news. The good news, let's just say their blood sugar is 240 and they didn't even know they had, and you'll know that that's pretty high. I mean, you can eat a lot of food, but it's pretty hard to get to 240 or 320 or something like that. And they've never been told they had diabetes. The good news is they're not on any medications. So your biggest problem are the people who come to you with medications and you reverse their disease and they become hypoglycemic.
Yeah, but I was interested in saying people who would want to do repeat labs,
Well, the only lab you need to repeat is a glucose, and you can do that, every single night that they come. You can do that. It's just a glucometer and a strip. It's $35. Yeah, you just use a glucometer and strips, and if you find somebody in your church who's a diabetic, they've already got one. They already know how to do it.
If you're giving these at night, they're not fasting, and you don't know what the meal composition has been, what their gastric emptying is, so is that a little dangerous to do?
We actually give them a schedule for when we suggest that they test when we have people who come to us at New Start and are diabetics, they test about 5 times a day. They test before every meal, 20 minutes after every meal. There's a schedule, and you can tell them the same thing. And they know a fair amount about how to manage their disease because they've been doing this. They know if they go to Cheesecake Factory and eat, a lot, they're going to have to, their blood sugar is going to be high the next day. They just know that. And you're going to learn a lot. And a lot of the questions you have right now, by going through this, it's going to answer your question. Okay, so how big should your group be? It's as big as you can handle. If you're a big church and you think you want to put on a program for 30 people, I would generally suggest that you not do that. I think it's better to be smaller and more intimate. And let's say you have 20 people, you have 10 more that want in. That's actually a good thing. And we haven't usually done that as an Adventist church. Let's take all comers. No, it's a good thing. I'm sorry, we're full. We'll call you when we have our next scheduled session. And they go, wow, that must be a really popular program. I can't get in. It's like I'm going to have to make sure that if they call me, I'm getting in.
Unless you want to have 2 meetings a week.
You don't.
You don't.
I'm going to just tell you, you don't want to do that because you will actually burn out your volunteers.
No, I meant if you have 2 groups of people at one end, you're going to have 2 separate meetings.
You don't want to do that. No, because you have a team of volunteers and you want to be nice to them. And this is a voice of experience because probably done it, seen it happen. It's not pretty.
So you said $99
Okay, let me finish that. So as a church, you register and it costs you $99 to register. And for that, you get the DVD set and it unlocks, you become a facilitator for that site, Tempe, you become a facilitator, and it's on our website. The great news is on the website, if you actually publish the date you're going to do it, it goes on our website everywhere. So people we've had people call from Boston to San Francisco, and they'll say, hey, there's a Diabetes Undone program. You need, a sister or brother, you need to go to that. So we kind of help doing some of the advertising. So then you have to decide how big your group's going to be. Let's just say you want to make it 12. You actually have to get 12 of these sets. Let's say you want to do 20. You have to get 20 sets. And so you have to order them. For this program, the first 10 sets are going to cost you $49 a piece. We will then allow you to have any additional people in the program for free.
Why do you need a set?
Because they need a cookbook and they need a workbook.
Oh, you can't order the cookbooks and workbooks?
You cannot. You can actually order the cookbook separate. The workbooks, they're only sold as a kit. You can't order the cookbooks independently, because people would then just say, well, I'm not going to pay you anything for these people. I'm just going to order the workbooks and I can have them for the next 10 years. We've kept the price down, but every time we want to do a session, you have to buy the kits, and so there's a recurring cost. But you just buy the kits. You've seen the kits. The kits are worth $50 face value. The cookbook's $25, the workbook's $20, and you get an 8 Laws DVD.
Okay, so if you have problems with your DVD, you can
If you have a really strong internet connection, when you become a facilitator, you have access to all of these online. In fact, you can show all of these that I've done using an internet connection. You don't even need DVDs and a DVD player.
Are we giving? Okay, I'm a little.
That's why you're here, to answer your questions.
We need to have a set of, so 80 DVDs, a set of 10.
You get one.
Each kit gets a
No,
DVD. Okay, the kids don't have the DVD.
Kids do not have the
Thank
DVDs.
you, okay. All right.
Okay? The facilitator has access to the DVDs. And the facilitator also has an access code that unlocks everything on our website, and all of these are available to them online also. So you have two avenues. You can go online, or you can actually use a DVD player. DVD player is more bomb-proof, and this is actually a good example of what can go wrong. I've done this for a year and a half. It's the first time I've had a DVD fail, and I'm not even sure. I'm going to find out if it's actually the DVD. But plan on being something wrong. I did an evangelistic series in Costa Rica, in Alajuela, Costa Rica, and we took 3 complete computer sets and 3 complete DVD sets of the evangelistic series, and every night only one computer would work, and it was not always the same computer. But we only needed one. God blessed us by thinking ahead and having redundancy, but we had 3 computers, and 2 of them every day would not be working because the devil was in the mix. But we got through that series, and there was not a hiccup, because we always had one that was working. So plan for disaster, and you'll be okay.
So is the DVD what the modules are online that you can get?
Correct.
And when you sign up for the $99,
You get a code that unlocks all of them.
do you buy the DVD separate then if you want?
You cannot buy the DVDs. Oh. You become a facilitator, we give you a free set. It's free, you pay $98. You get one set of DVDs, one. The facilitator gets it. Okay. And the facilitator also has a code that allows you access to all of them online. Okay. Does that make sense?
This set is what you need for...
This is the kit for the people who come, and they don't get these. But what we do when you register them, we actually send them once the program starts, and we know the date that the program starts, we send the participant a code that unlocks the modules for 3 months on our website. So the participants get access online.
I'm still confused. So there's the blue DVD, and I'll call that the white DVD.
That's an 8 Laws DVD. It just talks about the 8 laws of health.
And
That's
go
part of the
to a
kit.
participant.
Every participant gets one.
Okay.
Everyone.
So the facilitator.
You
that's
only
the
get one
okay.
set of these, and the only person who gets these is the facilitator.
Okay.
They can share them. Yes?
Is there, you know, DVDs, they don't even make computers with DVD players anymore.
I know, that's why I have an external drive.
You get a little stick. I mean, at our church, we push the stick in the wall, it comes up and the screen.
Right.
You know, there are no DVD.
You can take that DVD and dump it onto a thumb drive. It's easily done.
So I gave them to the people because more people I found out will
Right.
tell me that they don't have a player or they.
Most PCs still have internal DVD drives. No Apple products have internal DVD drives anymore.
Right.
Just so you know.
A lot of
And that's why there's access online. There's internet access.
most PCPs, if you buy one in the last 2
Right.
years, don't have a DVD drive. You gotta.
Yeah.
But a
Well-
lot of them have the little place for the stick. So we could actually put this on a stick.
It's easy to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah. We've
So
sold
this is the kit.
40,000 of those 8 Laws DVDs, by the way.
Is there any way to download the thing from the internet onto a stick?
No, we've made it so you can't do that.
Can't do that. Okay.
Yeah, for proprietary reasons.
Okay.
Pirating. You had a question?
Behind
Yes,
you.
I was a little confused. So you said you invite the people that have diabetes and then say they can bring friends.
Okay,
or
the
relatives
question,
that doesn't-
yeah, for in general, we suggest that they bring a non-diabetic friend, and those people come free. They don't get anything. They don't get a workbook. They don't get anything. They're not a participant. If they want that, they have to pay the fee. Now, here's what we charge you. We charge you $49 for each kit. Normally, not Pathways events, and you can choose how you want to do this. If you have somebody who's homeless and they're in your area and they came to your health information center in Tempe and you gave them information, their blood sugar is 300, and you tell them you really need to come to this, and they're homeless, they don't have any money, you can say you can come free. This is an exception. We don't do that for any other situation except for this event. You let them come free. You might want to give them a participant kit, but that's up to you. It's going to cost you $49. You may or may not decide to give it to them because if they're homeless, they might throw it in the wastebasket on the way out the door. It's possible because they're very selective on what they keep and what they throw away because they have to be mobile.
I
But
was kind of thinking about like if a husband-wife came.
husband and wife is awesome because if the husband has diabetes, it's really important that the wife comes because she's usually cooking. And she has to get it. Because if she doesn't get it, he can't go home and tell her because sometimes that just doesn't work.
Do you recommend giving, like if there's a cup, well, the 2 diabetics in one home become, one?
They could just have one. They could share it. It's up to you.
Okay.
If they just want to have one kit, they can save the fee, especially for this event. Normally, we would say they need to have a kit, but you can fudge the rules for this one. So we actually, in a normal situation, we usually suggest that the church charge around $99 for this product because that's still a steal considering what they get. They get $50 worth of printed product, and then they get free food samples, etc. At the end of a typical Diabetes Undone program, you would have had more money than you spent, and you never had to go to your church board and ask for anything. You see, you might have to have them front load you with $500 or $1,000, but then you're going to get $1,500 or $2,000 back from your people. So at the end, you pay it all back, and you still have money in your budget, so you never actually have to. Some churches don't have much money in their budget. This is a perfect example of why that's great, because you don't lose any money, you make a bit. Okay? So I hope, and this is kind of important why we march through this, because it can be a little confusing. You sign up as a church, your church signs up, and you put a name in there who's going to be the facilitator for Diabetes Undone for Tempe Church.
And they're the ones that get that.
They will get this. They will also get a code which unlocks everything on our website, so they actually don't even need this. All of them are online.
Is that time limited?
It's time limited for a year. Yeah. Every year you have to renew. Exactly.
So if your church didn't want to charge $99 for participants?
You can give it to them for free, but your church better have some money.
Yeah, so the church just would foot the bill.
Exactly. Exactly. Here's why you shouldn't do that. Because they need to have skin in the game. If you get something free, that's all it's worth. And so even if they have to scrape, this is important. If it's not important enough to find $50 or $60, they aren't going to be successful. And your goal is to win a soul, but your goal is also to reverse their disease. And the reason you don't want to give it to them is you really need to have them have some skin in the game. And I don't care if it's $15 or $20. I don't care what it is, but they need to pay something that would make them realize that it has value. Yes, and then you.
I just wanted to know, the only way to be, just to be facilitated has to be through a church?
No, you do not have to be a church to be a facilitator. You can sign up as a facilitator. You don't even have to have an organization. You can become a facilitator in your own community, and you can put these on in your living room. In fact, we actually suggest that that's not a bad idea because it's more intimate and it's probably going to be more successful. You don't have to be a church.
Is that the same $99?
Same price.
I'm doing it online right now. And I'm in Arizona. My apartment's in Chicago. And so we're doing it.
So you're already doing it. Well, so we have a user. We have a user already, so you can talk to her. Is it working?
Yeah, well, we're using the video. The video part is what's a little bit technically challenging for us.
You mean online?
Yeah, we're using Zoom. So for
okay,
Lita to be facilitating and her facilitating the different classes and trying to get the participants to see us and see the videos, that's the challenging part that we're still trying to work out.
So in that situation, what works best is to actually have all of the participants having a participant code so they independently unlock the program and then they watch it when you tell them to watch. So you're on FaceTime or you're connecting somehow so that you're seeing each other. She's doing something really amazing. She's doing a program for somebody who's 1,000 miles away. You know, she's not in the classroom, she's 1,000 miles away and they're doing it virtual. She's got a virtual classroom. And that's hard because that you not only have to do that, but then you have to actually also show the videos. So if they have participant codes and have internet access, you can just say, now watch 3.2, start now, and then everybody just watches it independently, and then they're all done, and then you reconnect on FaceTime. There you go. It can be done. Yeah, it's like a webinar, only even more difficult, more complicated. Okay, so you all understand how this is working. You know, the first 10 kits, you need to purchase, but then any additional people you want to come for the Pathways event, which is, therefore, this is going to be done immediately after Pathways. We as Life and Health are not going to charge you for having diabetics there. They're not going to get a participant kit unless the church wants to fund it or, you know, they're a participant. Yes?
So the additional free, so let's say we get 10 people first go around, and then we have 2 waiting lists of 10 and 10. Can we order 30 and then you...
No, you'd order 10 and any additional people could come that session for free. See, if you order 30, we're going to charge you for 30 kits. But let's just say you want to have a session. Say you have 10 people who came from Pathways and you don't, they could all come free. You just can't give them participants. Go ahead and just put it on and have them all come free. No, that's okay.
What I'm saying is because you said the first 10, 49, and then...
you have to buy 10 kits, but then you could have 30 more people in that room that don't have kits, but we're not going to charge you for being there because typically if they're in the room and they're diabetic, you have to buy a kit and you have to pay us a fee. It's a licensing fee.
Okay, I understand. I thought that you could get other free kits.
We're not going to give you free kits because our cost, you know, we suddenly, you know, we have some real cost there. So about $20 per kit is our cost.
So you buy 10 kits, you can have 20 more people.
Oh, you can have as many more people as you want. They don't get kits though. They don't get a workbook, cookbook.
So it's just kind of in one ear and out the other.
Well, maybe. You know, you could have some people. It's up to you. But you know, that's it. We just have real cost. What I would suggest that you do And see, what Leela has wanted us to do is to make this free. Well, to make it free, I got to find some donors because I'm going to lose a bunch of money. And so what I've done, I mean, this is already, everybody says it's amazingly cheap. If you compare it to CHIP, CHIP is now hundreds of dollars. This is $49. And it's a disease-specific program that has a lot of really cool stuff that goes with it. It's a one disease program, and the problem with CHIP is that it used to be cardiac health improvements, now complete health. It's like it's one shot, kills all. This is a very disease-focused, disease-specific program, and because of that, you're going to have much more success. You're going to be excited. I mean, you're going to see miracles. These people are going to come, and they're going to be crying. You're just not going to believe how it works. Yes?
So your experience with the other pathway events is that even though the people that are coming to pathways typically don't have insurance or funding, that they're still willing to pay?
We want them to have some skin in the game, even if it's $5, $10. But what I would suggest is that your church figure out some way to help supplement them. You're not going to, it's not like you're going to have 100 people, because there's so many different places. Because even if you had 100 people who had type 2 diabetes, then getting them to come to a program, your conversion rate's not going to be real high.
But do you think that the $99 charge is practical?
Probably not for pathways. I'd probably keep it down to 50, somewhere in there, 50, or figure out to have somebody within their church that would help sponsor some of these people so they would pay half of them. Okay. I just can't imagine that you should charge less than $25 to anybody.
Right.
Because if it's free, they'll come the first night and then they won't show up, and you've reserved all this and the spot and stuff, and then they don't even show up.
If I could share something about the pain thing, because I used to run the Step Fast program like every January. We did it for a few years. And it is true. If you said it's free, people think it's worth nothing. Even though it costs hundreds of dollars, and they will not come. So what we came up, even though we wanted to do it free, we say you pay so many dollars. Usually it was about $35 to $40. If you're $10 sessions, you get your money back at the end. And that's what we did. And many times, and those were the best attended ones. They were all.
That's actually a great idea.
And at the end, a lot of people will say, keep the money.
Yes, because it was so valuable to them, they don't want the money back.
Return money, but as soon as we say free, the attendance was scattered and scattered. But when you pay the check, when we collect the check from them and say all the sessions, you get your money back. I don't remember anybody we had to give money back to. They felt like they'd gotten their money worth.
That's actually a very good strategy.
Then fill in the book probably.
Well, they keep the book, they fill it in. I mean, you don't want them to not fill it out and then give the workbook back. You want it to be very personal, because that's going to, when they have problems, they want to go back to the workbook and reread it, and that will help refresh them, and they'll get back on course again. But that's actually an excellent strategy.
So we didn't have a kit to give them, so having the kit might complicate things a little bit, but it was just an attendance.
But how you charge and what you charge is really completely up to you. We don't try to manage that. We just charge you $49 for the number of kits you order, and then you just do what you want with them. If you never put on a program, you got a bunch of kits sitting in a closet.
So I think I hear too that if they are seeing a doctor and they are on medication, they should probably go to their doctor and say, I'm going to start this program and you should monitor my medication so I don't become hypoglycemic.
We have some very specific disclaimers in the program. Dr. Youngberg talks about it, disclaimers in the program, that this program is going to be successful, and if you're on medication, you will definitely need to reduce your medication and potentially stop your medication, but we can't do that for you, so we need to make sure that you communicate with your primary health care provider. But most people who've had diabetes long enough have pretty much ended up managing their own medications anyway, and you need to alert them that they need to monitor their blood sugar very carefully, because they are going to become hypoglycemic. And I'll give you a story.
Okay, I don't understand the 242. So if you
The 424.
Okay, so there are 8 total sessions.
Correct.
So you say 4.
Let's just worry about the first 4 of the 424. Because that's all we're talking about is the first 4. You're not worried about the 2 or the 4. It's 4 weeks of a Diabetes Undone program. That's the first 4. It's 4 weeks of a Diabetes Undone program. It's 4 weeks of a depression recovery program. It's 4 weeks of something else. Okay? And that 4-week program in this situation is 2 times a week for 4 weeks for 8 sessions. Don't worry about the 2 and 4. Someone else is worrying about those.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I thought this program spanned that.
This is not a bridge. You know, we're just worried about the first 4 weeks. That's all we're focusing on. Someone else is going to do the 2-week bridging, and someone else is going to do the 4-week reaping. Not your problem. Now, you might want to be involved in it, but you don't have to. You're already very busy here. Okay?
And then you can follow up after
Absolutely.
that, later on in 3 more months.
You need to stay
We're gonna
connected
put
with them.
another class on, so that's...
I was up in northern Washington, and Jim Brackett, who, amazing guy, knows diabetes inside and out. He's a physics teacher, but went into health work, was the president of the Nevada, or he's the ministerial secretary for Nevada-Utah Conference. He's a ordained pastor. He asked me to come up and help him with a reversing diabetes, a 5-day live-in program. He has a retreat with cabins and stuff. And because I have a state license in Washington, he needed a licensed physician, so I told him I'd go up and help him. And I'm the doctor, you know, I know what I'm doing. So I had this older lady, 81 years old, from Burnaby, British Columbia. And she came in, type 2 diabetic. She's short, kind of rotund, sweet, sweet lady. And I gave her a physical as she was processed in, and I told her, and she was on some oral medications, and I said, we're going to cut your medications in half because you're going to need to take less medications because we're going to start fixing this problem that you have with insulin resistance. Thinking I knew what I was doing. So I cut her medications in half, and she did, in fact, cut her medications in half. And we're 36 hours into the program. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, and I get a knock on my door. Dr. Bivens, I think my roommate's dying. I went in and looked. I put some clothes on. Yeah, I went in and looked. Sure enough, she was. She's as white as a sheet. She's diaphoretic. She's sweaty. I feel her pulse. She's got a thready pulse. Her eyes are kind of rolling in her head. She's kind of semi-conscious. And I'm thinking she's having a heart attack, and there's no way. I'm out in the woods. She's going to die. Her roommate is also a diabetic, younger, smarter than me. She said, Dr. Bivens, do you think we should give her some juice? Interesting idea. Can't hurt, you know. Do you have any juice? Yeah, I have some in the car. So she ran out in the car, got some grape juice. Interesting. What's grape juice right now in this situation? It's medication. Why is it medication? Because it will get your blood sugar up faster than almost anything I can do. So when you drink grape juice, you remember that I told you grape juice is medication. She took some grape juice. She was conscious enough to drink, because that's always a problem. If they're too far gone, they won't swallow, they're aspirate's a problem. So she drank some grape juice, in about 5 to 7 minutes, she's like 90% better. So we then take her blood sugar. Her blood sugar's 54. It's way up, and it's only 54. I learned a valuable lesson. First of all, some patients are a lot smarter than me. And secondly, even old people can reverse their diabetes really fast, unexpectedly fast, because some people take 8 days, 9 days, and they're still working on it. In 36 hours, she was fixing her doors, she was fixing her insulin resistance, and she was probably 30. Her blood sugar is probably 30. You and I had 30, we'd be unconscious, maybe dead. The reason that this is a problem is hypoglycemia can kill you. And hyperglycemia takes a long time before it actually causes problems. So hypoglycemia is an emergency, and it's a real problem. And we tell them repeatedly through disclaimers that this program is going to work for you, and you're likely to get hypoglycemic, and you better be testing yourself very frequently. And then connect with your primary care provider. We don't really suggest that even if you have a physician with an Arizona license, that they tell them to do a certain thing, because you don't have a physician-patient relationship. It's not your job, and they need to stay connected with their healthcare network. That's really important. We can't stress this enough because you're going to make them potentially dangerously low because this program works really fast for some people.
You started earlier about having them test 5 times a day.
We do that. We don't suggest that that's pretty intense. We have nurses and we have a lot of, but that's how often we test them when we're in a lifestyle live-in situation.
So you said before and 20 minutes after, and then what would be the next routine?
Well, yeah, bedtime. We want them to test as soon as they get up, and we want them to test at bedtime. But that's a lot of testing, and most diabetics are going to rebel. We actually, at New Start, only feed them twice a day also, so there's fewer. Now, it was really ironic, and you'll learn this. We feed them at 8 in the morning and at 2. And actually, early on in the program, after most of them go through a 3-day medically induced fast. So on Friday, they're eating, and I come by around Monday or Tuesday the second week, and I'll sit there, and I'll go to lunch with them at 2 o'clock, and I'll say, so are you hungry? And they'll say, no. In fact, I must have eaten too much breakfast because I'm still not hungry. I go, would you have imagined that this would have happened? No, I thought you guys were just trying to save money. And then I explained to him, I said, we did a cost analysis. It cost us more money to have you go through a medically induced fast than if we fed you. Because we have more labor. We have to manage and control and watch you and test you. It actually costs more money to have them fasting than if we just let them go ahead and eat. But the important thing is, and you'll learn in the module, why are they not hungry at 2 o'clock? They ate the right kind of food. And what's the right kind of food? High fiber. That's really the key. Legumes, beans are a diabetic's friend. In fact, I have a whole lecture. It's called the Bean Lecture. We talk about beans and methods of cooking them and freezing it so that you have beans. We even can beans so that you can have beans right on the shelf so you don't have to buy cans of beans. I mean, legumes, the reason that beans are so important for a diabetic, if we had some other food that had higher fiber, we would recommend it. But beans, legumes in general, have very high fiber, and they modulate the blood sugar. And you'll learn about this in the program. You'll learn why certain foods are important. Beans for breakfast, absolutely. Beans for breakfast. There you go. Yeah, pinto waffles. Yeah, she's got waffles, but there's beans in them. The other day, we finally put in a garden. I had to put in a 7-foot fence to keep the deer out where we are, and we put in a garden and we planted a bunch of corn, and we didn't eat it all, and so I thought, well, we'll just let some of it dry, and it dried, and we just laid it out on the table, and it was still 100 degrees out, so it all dried. And then I had actually never done this or never remember doing it, but then we just chucked all the corn kernels, and they're just perfectly dry. And our Vitamix has a dry base. There's a wet and a dry base. You can get them both. And the dry base will take wheat berries and actually make flour. So I just threw a bunch of corn in there and made cornmeal. And so then the kids said, can we have chili and cornbread for breakfast? That's the kids asked, that's one of their favorite breakfasts. So that kind of breakfast will take you till 2 o'clock. If you have cold cereal, you're going to be hungry at 10:30. Let's talk about oatmeal. People say, well, it's hot oatmeal. I had oatmeal. Can you tell me what kind of oatmeal? How long did it take to prepare it? They say, well, it was instant oatmeal, but it was a hot cereal. And I go, well, and we learn about glycemic index. And I go, there was a study done, and it was obese 3rd grade girls. So we'll just imagine, sorry, you're all girls. That works for you guys. It doesn't work for you. And you're 3rd graders, and you're all obese. You're all girls, and you're all obese. And we're going to give you guys steel-cut oats for breakfast, and we're going to give you guys instant oats. Instant oats, they're hot. I just took hot water, put it into and I stirred it up, and you can eat it. We'll talk about what happens, okay? You guys got steel-cut oats, took 40 minutes to cook. It took you guys no time to cook. You just added hot water. You ate the same thing for breakfast other than that. You got the same number of calories. At lunch, we fed you all the same thing. You all ate it all, and you all ate the same number of calories. Okay, you got the setup. The only thing's different is the type of oats you had at breakfast, same number of calories. At dinner, we set up a buffet, and we said, you can eat ad lib. Go eat whatever you want. We're just going to write down what you ate. You guys chose to eat 40% fewer calories. 40%. And we explain in the program why that happened. Because they modulated their blood sugar. They had higher fiber. Their blood sugar didn't spike. You guys, your glycemic index, your insulin just like shot up there. And then because of that, the insulin went up. And then you crashed at 10:30. You were starving. At 10:30, you weren't starving. So at 10:30, if you're at work, you're wandering around like, where's a donut? You know, where's it? At 10, because you're hypoglycemic. Now, so you find a donut. Does that work? Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Your blood sugar goes zooming up again. Oh, finally, I'm good again for another hour and a half. And then you're crashing again. You see the problem? You guys, you never had that 10:30 slump because your blood sugar, you just went up kind of slow, and we say it has legs. It's actually taking you clear through the morning so that you could, theoretically, if you had enough other calories, some fruits, you know, some berries, you know, some other plant-based products that have fiber in them, you could easily go till 2 o'clock. And you wouldn't be that hungry. You guys would be famished. You'd be eating the formica off the countertops. Yes.
Can I add, they have gotten on the bean idea with the cereal companies. They have now cold cereals made with bean flour. But
well, I will just tell you.
Those are the yellow lists because they're refined.
Yeah, I will just tell you, and you'll learn about red light, green light, yellow light foods. If it's processed, you know, it's processed, you know, and they've taken that thing and you know, for me, can I find cornmeal that's as good as the cornmeal I just ran through? No, you can't. It's got the whole germ. It's the complete thing. It's organic. I knew where it came from. I knew where it was planted. I know everything about that corn. I can't buy corn that's as good as that corn that I put in the cornmeal. It's not possible. And if it's in a box, it's processed. We teach people how to read labels, and I tell my health students, I go, now for you personally, you don't need to know how to read a label for your own dietary needs because you're not going to eat anything with a label. If it's in a package, if it's in a bag, if it's in a box, if it's in a can, it's going to have a label on it. What's the label on a peach or a watermelon? Have you seen the nutritional label on one of those lately? You go get a 25-pound bag of pinto beans. Where's the nutritional label? It's not there. It just says beans. It's not processed. What happens when you process, and you're going to learn this in the module, the problem with a diabetic is not the carbohydrate. It's the fat. And you're going to learn why. Now, the carbohydrate has a role to play because by eating complex carbs instead of simple carbs, you will get fewer of you in the room. But you haven't fixed the problem. The problem, you remember, I said you had intramyocellular lipid? I didn't say you had intramyocellular carbohydrate. You have lipid. You have fat in your cell. And your cell has become what we call fat and sassy. It says, I don't need any more energy. You guys can't, I don't want you in here. You know, you're just going to have to stay out there in the plasma. You can't come in. To process foods, first of all, the flavors in the fat, how do you take fat and give it a shelf life? How do you do that? You hydrogenate it. You put in, partially hydrogenated vegetable. Have you heard that term? That's a trans fat. Trans fat's probably one of the worst products that a human can consume. And it's those fats that are keeping you from reversing your diabetes. You had a question.
Yes, I did. And I don't mean to pick on things. But for a lot of diabetics that are stage 2, already their kidneys are compromised. And the phosphorus in the beans creates a problem for the kidneys. So what do
in our experience, people come to us who are, you know, their GFRs are, you know, high, their creatinines are 3, they're in kidney failure. And they're being told that they need to go on dialysis. And we've actually had patients come to us the same scenario. End-stage renal disease as a result of type 2 diabetes, which actually is the most common cause of end-stage renal disease. If you go to a dialysis unit, more than 50, it's now more than 60% of the patients that are there because they have type 2 diabetes. We've had patients come to us who were being told by their nephrologist that they need to go on dialysis, and we put them through our program. We're a little light on the beans initially, but eventually it's plant-based diet, and we've kept them out of dialysis units sometimes for years. Their creatinines drop, their GFR improves, and they get better, and then they don't have any trouble handling the phosphate. But if you don't fix the underlying problem, you can't, that's an issue. I mean, but you're talking about a kind of an unusual patient. You're talking about a patient that's clear at the end of their disease. They're a patient who's in end-stage renal failure, and so you're talking about, but most of the people who are going to come to your program, I would say for every 100 patients, you'll have one like that. So it's a very small percentage.
Can I answer the question? I work with dialysis patients, and when you do plant-based, only plant-based, you're decreasing, it's the phosphorus content of the whole meal. If you're adding meat to that, because meat has phosphorus in it. So it's because you've gotten rid of
it. The phosphorus load is lower.
Of the phosphorus, you have now allowed that plant-based bean diet to be able to be appropriate. Also, plant-based protein is less harmful to the kidneys, so that kidney is going to function better and be able to get rid of like it should and not be as compromised, as opposed to you having that meat to acidify that kidney so it can't function properly. So doing a plant-based diet with beans and other high phosphorus foods is not a problem. The other thing is soaking those beans, because you're getting rid of a lot of phosphorus in the water. It's called dialyzing.
You're dialyzing the kidneys.
So the moment I don't soak up in water first?
No, she's saying you need to. Yeah, for especially for an end stage, renal failure. Yes.
I have a question. Do you consider a canned bean?
No, here's the issue with canned beans. The problem with canned beans is the salt that goes into the canned beans. If it's, if it doesn't have any salt, if it's just beans and water, if that's the most convenient way to eat beans, we actually have a class, the bean class, and we actually show people how to can their own beans using a pressure canner, and the cost for a quart of beans is 18 cents. Cheap. So you need to do two things when you recommend foods. You have to make it the same price or less, and you actually have to be efficient. So if I can do 7 quarts of beans and give you enough beans to last you for several weeks, depending on the family size, and I can show you that in 5 minutes you could have these in the canner getting ready, then they go, okay, I can do that. The problem with anything that's canned, inside the can there's a very thin lining of plastic inside the can, and you don't know that BPA didn't leach into the foods. It probably didn't, but you don't know that. You don't know how old the can is. You don't know what its mama is. You don't know where it came from. You don't know the processing plant that made it. If you do it yourself, you know all those things, and you can do it for a profoundly less amount of money. There's no reason for you not to just cook them in your own. You could have canned beans, but we tell people slow cookers. There's Instapot, which is a computerized pressure canner. There's a pressure cooker. You have all these options to cook them yourself that you should only have. We have some canned beans in our shelf because in an emergency, say you want kidney beans and you want them firm, we just grab a S&W can of kidney beans that has no added salt. That's okay. But it shouldn't be your normal procedure because it's more expensive and it's less efficient.
What happens to those people that only eat at 2 p.m. Then are they hungry by evening?
No, good question. Because we then ask them at breakfast the next day, so are you really hungry for breakfast? And they go, well, I'm ready to eat breakfast, but I'm fine. It's what you eat. Now, if you eat a lot, if your glycemic load is high on that meal, you're going to be crashing at 8 o'clock, at 9 o'clock. They actually, you tell them on day one, this is what's going to happen, and nobody believes you. They're going, that's not going to happen. And then it happens. They go, okay, I guess you were right. But they have to experience it. If you tell them, they're not going to believe you. They just don't. No, that's not. That might happen for some people. That's not happening for me. Yes?
So what happens if you have a hard time digesting things? Do you get used to it after a while?
You do. Your actually biome, your intestinal gut biome actually has to readjust. If you've been eating lots of meat, your biome is not healthy enough to digest all those beans, and you're going to get a lot of gas. And we just tell people, hang in there, and we won't be embarrassed if you have to pass gas in class. I don't know. What do you say? Go ahead and step outside. But your biome, when you go from a carnivore diet, your intestinal bacteria have to adjust to a new diet, and that takes some transition, and that takes a couple of weeks, potentially. So we just tell people to hang in there. Yes?
So back to like the kidney disease, if a first patient comes in and they've already got, say they're under 60 GFR, and they have, kind of.
So, but they're not on dialysis. They're not on dialysis yet.
They're not that low yet.
Okay.
With this program, basically, are they expected that their kidneys won't get any worse as well?
Absolutely. In fact, our experience is that they're going to improve. Their GFR is going to go up, and their creatinine is going to drop.
I always thought that it can't get better.
You always thought that diabetes couldn't be reversed too.
Yeah,
See, I mean, we're just giving you a.
I just graduated with a dietary.
Right.
And they weren't talking about.
No, they don't. In fact.
In the clinical, they still said once your GFR is here, that they can't get better.
Glomerular filtration rate. It's a test looking at the function, the renal function of the kidney.
I've had patients be on dialysis 2 years and their kidney function come back. This is not even changing their diet.
And the problem is if you're a registered dietitian, you're told a certain mantra, and this is just the way it is. And you're also told that we're going to manage type 2 diabetes, and we're saying, look, you can reverse this, and in the process of reversing it, you're going to reduce your risk. If you really follow this program, you're going to reduce your risk for cancer by 80%. You're going to reduce your risk for acute coronary syndrome by 100%. If your cholesterol is less than 149, you will not have a heart attack. We will reduce your risk for stroke by 95%. We'll reduce your risk for peripheral vascular disease by at least 90%, just by following this program for type 2 diabetes. Wow. I mean, wow is right. Wow.
I just wanted to say I'm a living witness, and my GFR has improved. I was on dialysis.
She was on dialysis, and her GFR improved.
And I've been off dialysis for over a year.
Amen. See?
I was going to share that. A lady in our church, she's approaching 80. She was in they keep telling her she's in third stage kidney disease, and you should see the eating list there is. The eating list is like they eliminated everything from a plant. And she did not follow it. She goes to every class. She just said to follow the vegan diet. Oh, she has a normal GFR right now. So I don't know how it corrected. If all those things on the list were not to be eaten, I can't explain it, but I know she does.
Here's the bottom line for, and we've covered a lot of diseases, but trying to focus on diabetes. God's plan is amazing. God's foods are simple. If I created some special sauce and I sent you a little packet of it with every participant kit, and I say, this is $100 a month, and if you keep taking this, you'll continue to be successful, and I could be a multi-millionaire, because they would buy it, because they would believe it's the special sauce. But the special sauce that we have, the addition is we have prayer. We tell people every night that every one of our team members is praying for every one of you every day. We're very overt about it. We tell them we do that, and then we have prayer at the beginning and the end of every session so that they know they're being prayed for. And we've had patients who were agnostics who said, I thank you so much for doing that for me. I had a patient once, and I said, can I pray with you? And they said, well, I don't believe in God. And I said, well, let me tell you about a study done at Harvard University. There are patients going in for surgery, and some were being prayed for and some weren't, and it was a double-blind study. The patients didn't even know if they're being prayed for. The patients that were being prayed for statistically did better in post-op than the ones who weren't prayed for. So even if you don't know you're being prayed for, if I pray for you, you're going to do better. And you know what he said to me? He says, you better pray for me then. You just have to use science against itself. You know, I mean, we use those things to improve what we do. But the bottom line is, the goal is a soul. Our goal is to develop a relationship, to have friends, to find out what their needs are. Clearly, they have a need of correcting their type 2 diabetes. It's a real need, and we're there to help them. But that's not where we're going to stop. We're going to find out what other needs they have. Maybe they need some help around their yard. Maybe they have peripheral neuropathy, because that's, by the way, peripheral neuropathy. Let's talk about that really quick. I don't think Wes covers it very much. Peripheral neuropathy is a complication of diabetes. People get it. Basically, they can't feel, and that's why diabetics have a higher incidence of infections, because they can't feel when they step on a nail or something and they get infected. They have poor circulation. That's part of the problem with the peripheral neuropathy, so they can't heal it very well, and so they get a really bad infection. They eventually need an amputation. That's the process. In our experience at Weimar, which is a more intense program, but it still has the same end result, the people who come to us with peripheral neuropathy, they're told by their physician and even their neurologist that if you get peripheral neuropathy with diabetes, it can't be reversed. We did a study on all the patients who came to us with peripheral neuropathy. 70% of them were completely healed, and 26% of them improved. Only 4% did not have any significant improvement. This in a paradigm that says when you have peripheral neuropathy, you've got it forever, it's never going to go away.
And one of the drugs, metformin,
it makes it worse.
Yeah.
You mentioned Weimar a couple times on my.
I'm sorry. Weimar Institute is like Black Hills, Watch the Hills. It's a nonprofit health center. We actually have an accredited college with about 100 students in it now. We have an academy with about 80 students. We have right now about 90 full-time employees. Weimar, California, north of Sacramento, about 1 hour. And the New Start program, you've heard of New Start? Does that ring a bell? New Start is an acronym that stands for the 8 natural laws: nutrition, exercise, water. It's an acronym, and people come for an 18-day residential program. They spend $5,000 to $6,000. We barely make money. We're not making a lot of money off them. When I started there 4 years ago, they were losing $250,000 a year in New Start.
Now your diabetes program, is it separate from New Start?
No, we used to have a separate diabetes program, but we know historically the longer you can be in a lifestyle program, the more successful you be. We used to have a 3-day program. We would give them basically the information, but the success rate wasn't very good. So we don't have a separate diabetes reversal program. We actually insert them into the New Start program. When I went there, actually Dr. Nedley, who's I think probably next door, is the chief executive officer of Weimar Institute. A little over 4 years ago, we had moved there, and we have smaller children, and we had wanted to restart the elementary school on campus there. So I went to him and I said, I'd like to get a building to have an elementary school. There's a number of buildings there. And he said, you can have any building you want. I said, well, that's kind of an odd answer. He says, because we'd like to ask you to be the chief operating officer here. And I said, why would I want to do that? I prayed about it. I talked to some people. I talked to Danny Kwan, who had done it about a year before. And he says, oh, Randy, he goes, I think you'd be great. But he goes, mind you, I'd go home sometimes and wouldn't sleep all night. I go, I don't need that kind of job. So after about 10 days, Neil said, I really need an answer. So I said, okay, I'll do it for 90 days. And if you don't like me and I don't like you, no harm, no foul, and you don't have to pay me. And he said, I wasn't going to pay you. I've done that now for 4 years. In fact, if you add Neil and what we would normally get paid doing what we're doing, and if you add in our donations, collectively, we account for about $3 million. of donated time and money. The first board meeting I was at, we had been connected with Amazing Facts. We had been, and then we separated. In that separation, that divorce, we were shouldered with a $3.2 million debt. And the first board meeting I went to, I'd only been there like 2 months, and every third word was like debt, debt, debt. They think I'm like the big white knight that just rode in a horse and I'm going to solve this $3 million debt. And I said, let me just explain Finance 101. Let's say you're a family and you make $1,000 a month, and you decide to spend $1,100 of it. You can do that in America. It's called credit. Okay, you can do it for a while. I said, and then as a family, you decide to pay off your mortgage faster. Can you tell me how you would do that? And they said, well, you can't. And I said, okay, Weimar Institute does not have a balanced budget, and you want me to service a debt. Can you explain to me how you want me to do that? I said, we've proven that we can't pay off this debt, and we have to ask God to take care of this for us. He's going to have to perform a miracle because we've proven in our human attempts we can't even pay the interest. We can't service this debt. We can't pay down the principal. We can't even pay the interest. I said, we just have to pray about it. And we had a season of prayer. It lasted a couple hours. And we said, Lord, we're going to give this to you. And then when we're done, I said, okay, I don't want to hear the word debt out of your mouth again, because it's not our problem anymore. The next morning, we're still in board meeting, and our HR director, who's an attorney, came and took me out of the board meeting. I go, this better be important. He goes, check this out. It was a letter from a probate attorney from Reno, Nevada. And one of our New Start guests had gone through about 8 years before, had died, and he left us 25% of his $8.2 million estate. Well, it was 2.1. Our debt then, we had some people who had specifically paid off money for debt, so we had about a $2.2 million. The bottom line is that probate estate account completely paid off the debt. And it happened in less than 12 hours after we prayed. 2 years ago in September, our fiscal year goes from July 1 to June 30. So we were only 3 months into our budget. We have a face-to-face in September, and we were $500,000 short. I could just say we're going to be $500,000 short because we have actually achieved the second of 3 steps of getting regional accreditation for our college, which is important for credit transfer and all kinds of issues. We were going to be $500,000 short. And I just told him, I said, we're only 3 months into a 12-month budget, but we're going to be $500,000 short. And I'm just warning you, if we're trying to get accreditation, the first thing they do is look at our budget. If we can't balance our budget, you're out of here. So once again, I submitted a budget that just says we're going to have $500,000 more in donations, and that's how I balanced the budget. Well, they didn't like that. They go, wait a minute. So we again talked about it and had prayer, and I said, God has blessed us in the past. Let's not forget that. He's going to do it again. Let's just let him take care of this because we've proven we can't. So we prayed again. They had some faith. They said, but if you don't reach certain benchmarks by January, we're going to have an emergency board meeting, So much for some faith anyway. The board meeting lasts until Sunday morning. So Sabbath morning, we were in church, and we were between Sabbath school and church, and my phone chirped at me. There was a text message coming in, and I don't usually look at them in church, but it's board weekend. I think maybe it's a logistic problem. I better look at it. And this is what it said. Randy, I really wanted to tell the board this yesterday, but God is telling me I need to tell you now. My husband and I have been thinking about this for several months, and we've decided to donate $500,000. She didn't even know the amount. I should have asked for $1 million. What was I thinking? Where was my faith? That's what I do at Weimar Institute. I'm a physician. I'm a radiologist, and I manage a number of contracts for Adventist health hospitals, and I hire all the radiologists that work in those departments. So I have a revenue stream that's very healthy, and that allows me to donate. That's what I'm here on my own time, paid my own way, and all of this is at my own expense to do this because You know, in fact, I talked to the regional, Scott Reiner, who's the CEO of Adventist Health West, and I said, Scott, I said, really what I'm doing is I'm taking money from Adventist Health and spending it the way you were supposed to. So that's really my life, is running Weimar Institute, keeping it financially solvent and helping it grow. And in the process, we're on track to baptize 100 people this year out of our programs. Don McIntosh, he's our chaplain on campus. We're all, actually, a lot of the people who help run Pathways are from Weimar. Dr. Roger Gallant's not here. He's the medical director for Pathways. He's at Weimar. I mean, usually, you know, probably half of the people. Don McIntosh had a sermon that actually led Dr. Lewis to start this in the first place. So we've been there from the very beginning.
How do you spell that?
W-E-I-M-A-R, Weimar. Weimar Institute.
You just told us it just makes me think how incredible God made our bodies, and He made us to heal itself.
If we just let it.
If we just do it. And you know what? The whole acronym, it really is a balanced thing. Yeah. Because you could go without being heavy, without having cholesterol, without having all the risk factors, and still have a heart attack. As I did. I mean, I was completely stressed out in 2000.
That drove your cholesterol up.
Well, no, not my cholesterol, my blood pressure.
Yeah, that too.
Oh, adrenaline, I don't know, because
Yeah.
I know there were days I just felt shaky.
Yep.
And it damaged a little vessel in my heart called the OM1. They said
Yeah.
it looked like inflammation. I didn't have cholesterol, I didn't have to have a stent or anything, but I had high enzymes from. So I'm here as proof that the whole thing go together. We have to teach people to pray and
By the way, that's the obtuse marginal.
The what?
The obtuse marginal. OM1.
Okay. Yeah,
So you know, it's the
yeah.
obtuse marginal.
Mine was really small.
Yeah.
I said it was tiny, but that's when I was doing the health stuff all along, but I never paid attention to managing stress.
You know,
I
we
never
tell
put as much into prayer and rest, and then I realized
it's so critical.
damage.
There are two pillars to type 2 diabetes treatment: nutrition and exercise. However, if you don't include water, and if you don't include rest, and if you don't include trust in divine health, if you don't do all of the 8 natural laws, you're only getting about half, you're running on half of your cylinders. We tell people this isn't a buffet. You got to take some of everything. And when you do, when you're getting plenty of rest, then your stress level drops down. When you're drinking plenty of water, if you do everything, God's natural laws are stunning. Just stunning. Stunning. Okay.